Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love talking about events, awesome events, IndyCar in this case. We're talking about the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. We're joined by their president, Chris Parker. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me, Jeremy. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is a big event, not only for Middle Tennessee and Nashville, but for our state and beyond. And so bringing the IndyCar experience to Nashville, let's start with a little bit before we talk about this year's event. Give us a little bit of history in terms of bringing IndyCar to Nashville.
Sure, absolutely. So this will be our second event. Our inaugural event, of course, was last year. The dates this year are August 5th through the 7th. But to back up even further to your point, this is something that took a long time to pull together. Conversations went on in some way, shape, or form for 4 or 5 years. And I think a lot of it is timing and circumstance. I think a lot of it is just the logistics associated with having a temporary street course in a downtown urban environment that is so busy, that is so vibrant, that's going through such transformation like downtown Nashville is. But I can remember going back to probably 2015 with some early conversations. There was a couple of stops and starts along the way, but ultimately, I think when we had an agreement with the Titans in place, and then we were able to get some support with Roger Penske when he completed his purchase of IndyCar. I think that's when the snowball really started to take hold, and you could see that this was going to be something that could be put together.
So I definitely want to come back to some of the business side of it, because I think that in and of itself is almost like a whole show, is putting together a race of this magnitude, especially like you said, downtown in a very busy, thriving, growing city. But let's talk about this year's event, because it's 3 days and you're talking about racing. It's a festival. You've got celebrities, obviously. So when you paint the picture of what this experience is like, how do you describe it?
Sure. So at the end of the day, there's no question that there's a lot of racing, but we've always described this as being a 3-day festival, right? It's an excuse to throw a party in downtown Nashville, which Nashville does remarkably well. At its core, it happens to have a lot of motorsports, but to your point, it also has 2 different concert stages. It's got a festival environment. It's got somewhat of a midway. We're adding in a number of elements from the fan engagement perspective. Yes, you have sponsor activations. Yes, you have experiential opportunities, food trucks, and all sorts of concessions offerings. But we're looking at ways to activate along the riverfront, and we'll have some exciting announcements along those lines. And then just bringing a little bit of something for everyone, right? I mean, it is a bit of FOMO. You're trying to create that in downtown, where everybody is across the river doing what they do in downtown, with the idea of what's going on over there, and maybe we should go visit for a day. There's no doubt that the racing fans will all be present. It's a national draw because it is Nashville. But ultimately, you do want all of the local residents, you want all the downtown residents to have some interest in coming out for some portion, because if they see just a little bit of it, the likelihood is that next year or even subsequent years from there, they'll want to do more.
How do you describe, for those who aren't familiar with IndyCar, how do you kind of describe at the basic level IndyCar and what the race is?
So IndyCar is the highest level of open wheel racing in North America. I think that there really are 2 classifications, maybe 3 classifications of racing in North America. You've got your stock car racing, which would be NASCAR. You've got your sprint car racing with dirt tracks and those smaller scale cars. And then you've got your open wheel racing, of which IndyCar is the premier series. I think the part that we really like, IndyCar has really embraced a very aggressive transformation in terms of trying to attract a new, younger, maybe more affluent audience. I think they aspire to be somewhat like F1. I mean, everybody pays attention to F1, the Netflix series, all the personalities. And I think that there are a lot of similarities that can be drawn to IndyCar, not just because it's open wheel, but because of its international drivers, and a lot of appeal that it has in other parts of the country as well as other parts of the world.
So kind of going back to the business side, give us some of the stats, because it's 2.17 miles long. It's over a 2-hour race. Give us some of the stats on that side.
Sure. So you started off with it, right? So it's a temporary street course that is constructed in downtown or adjacent to downtown around Nissan Stadium. We do run over the Korean Veterans Bridge. We're the only current racing series to cross a body of water. It's been done before. We're the only one that's doing it right now. We go over and back across the river. You've got 11 total turns. You've got straightaway speeds that will approach 200 miles an hour. I think that it is a challenging course for the drivers. It sets up very nicely for us and our ability to use the campus that is available to us at Nissan Stadium and adjacent for grandstands and temporary suite structures and all of the paddock space that's needed, because really you're building a temporary city. I mean, IndyCar is kind of a traveling menagerie, right? You got over 100 semi trucks that sort of come in and help build this infrastructure that's necessary to host this type of a temporary racing circuit.
How far in advance, because we were talking off before you hit record on this, you have experience, you and your team, putting together big events and having to bring in all the stadium scaffolding and seating and everything. But how far in advance do you have to start setting up for this event?
So, it's a great question. It's never enough time. You'd always want more time, right? Let's be honest about it. I think the reality of the situation is that it's a very busy schedule for events in Nashville. So you've got the 4th of July fireworks. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, 4th of July fireworks festival in the country. So we start shortly after that event is completed and torn down. So call it, the 10th, 12th, some date in July. We'll start with some portions of either grandstand build or the track build. Ultimately, we have to have it complete and in place by Thursday, the 4th, the day before, so that it can be inspected and the drivers can preview it. And then on Friday, the 5th, cars roll onto it. And then we start the disassembly immediately thereafter. Sunday, late afternoon, early evening, we start taking it all apart. And it takes about half as much time to take it apart as it did to put it together. Kind of always the case, right? Your setup is always more than your teardown.
Sure.
but all told, you're talking about a month, give or take. You're talking about a month's worth of time to sort of get it all in, get it all assembled, conduct your event, and then get it mostly removed.
And I think that's important context, just when you look at the scale, the scope, and obviously all the logistics to be able to pull off a successful event. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into this. You mentioned a lot of new elements for this year. And, when you talk about the fan experience, when you're closing off a street, you have obviously kind of the street level, but you also have, like we're talking about, building up and being able to look down and see it. And so talk about some of those new experiences for this year's race.
Yeah. So, look, I think any event that you host or that you are responsible for, whether it's in a brick and mortar location or it's a temporary environment like this one, you always have to be looking for ways that you can improve, making it better for all of the constituent groups. So in this case, that's teams and drivers. It's also Nashville Metro and all the constituents, whether it be the Tennessee Titans or the Sports Authority or the downtown residents. And then ultimately for the fans, the most important group in our minds, right? Because, were it not for them, the event does not exist. So how do you find ways to improve? I think we found that a lot of things were done really well. Well, most grandstand locations and what have you will stay where they were. We found those to be pretty ideal. We'll move them ever so slightly. I'm not sure that, one fan to the next will know exactly, because they'll look like they're in the same spot. But again, adding more F&B options, adding more hangout locations, adding more cool zones and kind of water refill stations, adding more programming in different places. We will have a secondary music stage, of course, and a primary evening music stage. But I think it's important that we have other things for people to do, especially if you're not a hardcore race fan. There are those people who want to sit 6-8 hours in a grandstand, but there are also those people that want to do that for an hour or two and then wander around for 2 or 3 hours. And so making sure that we have enough things for people to do that it warrants their time and investment over an entire day or over a 3-day period, and having things that people want to go back and see. And if you've got stuff down towards the waterfront and you've got good music content on a stage and you go hang out there for a little while, this creates opportunities for people to want to spend more time at your event. The more time they spend at our event, the greater the likelihood that they want to do more with us, either the next day or a year from now.
And that goes back to your point about being a festival experience versus just a race experience. And it's all those other things that make it where you want to bring out your spouse, your family, your friends, everyone. And like you're saying, it's then not just a one day, it's a full 3-day festival opportunity to go out and really enjoy everything, all the sights and sounds and food and everything. Carry that forward into ticket packages, sponsorships, all the different ways that people and companies can engage.
Sure. So, we'll be going on sale to the general public here in the middle of April. We're currently doing all of our renewal activities. So for all the suite holders that purchased last year, all the sponsors that were engaged last year, all of the founders, the founders were our advocates. Those were our evangelists. Those were the people who signed up early for the right to be able to choose and move their seats and get some additional benefits like early access to parking and easy pass, fast pass access to the property. So, we very much are appreciative of the different groups of people and have to do that in their priority group for their renewal. But then we'll go on sale. And again, we want to make it priced appropriately. There'll be packages starting as low as $129 for people to be able to participate. We sell everything for the most part on a 3-day basis. But it's digital, it's electronic. You can transfer those things that you can't use, which is, I think, a great resource. It's also a great benefit. The fact that I may not be able to come all 3 days shouldn't deter me from wanting to buy a ticket. Maybe I can only come out on Sunday, but I have some friends, some neighbors, some business colleagues that I can give my Friday and my Saturday tickets to. And so I think that's a fundamental difference and a fundamental importance to how this event operates. And part of that is, I think, how the market operates. And whether you're in Nashville or Memphis, I think most people are very familiar with the digital environment at this point in time. And so having that ability is critical.
Back to the business side, the inaugural year is always the hardest one because there's so many things that you just don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Coming in and now obviously year 2, what has been, some really good learning lessons you've been able to apply on your end, back to just kind of the leadership lessons, the business side? What's been a couple of things that you're taking from that first year and saying, okay, now we're sharper, we're smarter, and now we can execute even on a higher level?
Yeah, look, I think that you always have to be innovating. You always have to be willing to change and improve. I think we definitely tried some stuff last year that maybe didn't work. I think that we had predictions on traffic patterns and where people would go. I think we were generally right. Where the main entrance would be, gate 1, people coming across the pedestrian bridge. I think that was an obvious one. But I do think we saw more people than we thought coming in what is Nissan Stadium gate 3 on the Woodland side. And so I think that we've got to be better prepared to deal with a larger percentage of people that come in over there. And then how do we move them around the campus? I think that we thought we had the right type of directional and wayfinding signage. You just need more. I think that we learned very quickly that there is a much larger percentage of people that have never been exposed to this type of an event in this type of an environment. And so moving people around, making sure that they know how to get there, not just with wayfinding and actual physical directional signage, but also putting more things in a easy sort of bite-sized digital format that they're able to access on their phone and be able to see a schedule and be able to see a map and look at it and go, okay, I know how I'm going to get over here. And then also a year under our belts, being able to work with all of our various vendors and partners to just do more education, to do more provide more information, and get them better prepared for year two. Because at least now everybody can say, oh, I remember where that was. Great, it's in the same place, and educate them so that they're better equipped to help create a better experience for the fan.
Yeah, and I think that's an important element, is that it's your inaugural year, but it's also theirs too.
It's everybody's inaugural
It's everybody's. So now all of a sudden you're way more experienced for everybody coming in. So the dates again, August 5th through the 7th, 2022, Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Give us one more thing that you wish everyone knew.
I think it's really important that, we're so appreciative of the opportunity to bring this event to Middle Tennessee. And to expose not just the state, not just the country, but ultimately the world to what we all know to be a great place to live and work. We recognize that it comes with some interruptions, but it does have a tremendous economic benefit for the area. Last year, inaugural year, in excess of $20 million of direct economic spending occurred. Being able to be nationally televised, being able to be internationally televised in over 200 countries. And also, I think, having some really important community ties. And that's a huge part of what we do. Yes, we're a week long or a 3-day festival in August, but we really are committed to the longevity of this event. We want to be like a Long Beach or a St. Petersburg and have something in place for decades. The best way to do that is to have community involvement. We've got some great partnerships with the likes of Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, with the Daniel Center at MTSU, with the Martha O'Brien Center. And I think that we'll only continue to try to find more ways that we can provide relevant impact with our event in this community.
Yeah, I love it. Wrap up with website, social media. Where do we go to learn more, get our tickets, and get involved?
Absolutely. So musiccitygp.com, @musiccitygp on all of the social handles, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and soon to be some more Snapchat and TikTok. But ultimately, we'd love to have people come out. The dates again, August 5th through the 7th. Ticket packages will go on sale to the general public at the middle of April, and they'll start as low as $129 for folks to come out. So musiccitygp.com. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Best of luck for a huge success for this year and beyond. And we'll look forward to seeing you out at the race.
Fantastic. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Jeremy.